I'll try to be quick. We did run out of some time. We'll try to be quick, but I'll try to make it worthwhile by providing some of the tools that you can use in your day-to-day life when you go back to your product life tomorrow. Cool. With that, let's begin. How many of you use 520 Bridge on a regular basis, be it like once or twice a week, if not more? It's OK. You can raise your hands. We all use kind of 520 Bridge half the time, right? Anyways, everybody's tired going back and forth from the fire drill. Now let's imagine you are a product manager for connecting Bellevue and Seattle across our mighty Lake Washington. Over 70,000 people take 520 Bridge every day. When you compare, when you put that in perspective, the alternative for that is to take inland road either through Renton or Kenmore. It saves about 40 minutes and 20 miles. It adds up quickly. It adds up quickly to over 15 million human hours every year. Think about it for a second. If you're a product manager who were to solve this problem, which is not only a multi-billion-dollar problem, but it also is a huge impact to humanity, you will be contributing in advancing the humanity. This is huge impact, all right? As a good product manager, you would have done your customer research, market research, technology research, figured out who your stakeholders are, what are the best ways to provide this connectivity. You would have experimented with ferries, inland roads, bridge over I-90, bridge over 520, floating bridge, suspension bridge, and a lot more. Over 100 years, you would have run through different A/B tests, figured out what works, double down on it, figure out what doesn't work, pivot away from it, right? In over 100 years, you would have come to a conclusion that 520 Bridge with a floating bridge on it is the best outcome for your customers, and you double down on it by converting a MVP, which existed for a long time, to a brand new V1 version that got released about 2 years ago with a brand new infrastructure, more lanes. But you're not done here, correct? You still have V2, V3, V4 to go with the new upcoming opportunities and the market needs of air taxi, tunnels, underwater bridges, and a lot more. Now, imagine you're a product manager for a similar problem in a software world. You being a good product manager, you would do your customer research, technology research, figure out the problem space, figure out your stakeholders, design a lot of A/B tests, run through them to determine what works and double down on it and what doesn't work and pivot away from it. Like doing this, you would incentivize customers' behavior by providing offers, tools, and a lot more. But the good part is you can do all of this in a matter of weeks, unlike the 100+ years that 520 Bridge took. If you think about it, imagine the impact you're generating on advancing the humanity. You almost have a 5,000x multiplier on the impact that you think 520 Bridge had. You had like 5,000x more multiplier. That's huge. That's basically how fortunate we are in software tech industry, in bringing in such impact at scale, bringing in effect that disrupts almost every field for good. We, being the product managers, act as a catalyst at the center of it. With that, let me introduce you to today's topic, KPIs to facilitate the culture of fail fast, learn, and iterate. You'll get three main takeaways from this presentation. First, understand why fail fast, learn, and iterate concept works in today's world of agile software development. Second one, how do you as a product manager, how do you use KPIs to speed up this adoption? And lastly, you have gone through this understanding of fail fast, learn, iterate process, use KPIs to get your teams to adopt. How do you build the right culture to make this sustain, to make this adoption stick for a long time? Sounds good? Okay, let's dig in. Fail fast, learn, and iterate is basically a concept in agile software development where the whole systems are built around iteration as the center of it, and then there are things that are built around it to support this iteration. Most often, or the famous one is the fail fast, learn, iterate, but then there are other things such as fail fast, learn faster, fail safe, iterate faster, things like that. But at the end of the day, they all convey the same thing. Your job is to figure out how do you iterate fast, and then whenever you come up with ideas, build those solutions, build those services, find out how to measure it, and then ship it to the portion of the customers measure them, understand what works, double down on it by converting MVPs to V1, V2, V3 products. At the same time, whenever things doesn't work, learn from it, pivot away from it, or iterate on it to get to a more successful product. The failure part here is only a means so as to learn and iterate. In no means it means that's the only way you can learn and iterate. Success just works fine. In fact, success just works fine for most of us. And continuous, consistent successes would just work very well for learning and growing. But then these successes are very hard to find. The current statistics is over 95% of startups fail, right? If success was easy, we would all have learned a lot, and by having those successful subsequent successes and iterate and grow from there. But these successes are so hard to find. By removing the stigma of requiring these successes as a prerequisite for learning and iterating, we are able to use failures as well as successes in this process of what can we use to learn and what can we iterate so rapidly so as to move towards a solution that works for customers, solve customer problems, and generate customer impact. There are mainly two reasons why in today's world, failure is okay. Failure is encouraged. Not quite overemphasized yet, but there's still a lot more scope as an organization, as individuals to do more to encourage failures. But there are mainly two reasons why failures are okay. First one is cost of delivery. In today's world where everything is a software, pretty much everything is a SaaS, there are very few cases where companies work on other things, but pretty much everything is a software service by cloud, where the cost of delivery has gotten very low. You can instantly update your customers' bits, software bits, change experiences based on targeted customers, and a lot more. This basically means adoption of agile software development and continuous delivery has given us a room to be very agile. We don't have to plan 5 years in ahead. We don't have to set on a path for 5 years with the current today's constraint, knowing that they won't remain same 6 months to 1 year from now. We can plan for 6 months, we can plan for 1 year, keep experimenting, keep pivoting as and when we learn new things. This is one of the reasons why failure is okay. Failure, because it's a short-term thing, we can always learn from it and iterate. Second reason why failure is okay is cost of iteration. As product managers, one of the things that's kind of closely associated with us is how do we maintain and manage the cost of iteration to be low. If the cost of iteration is lower, that basically means you get to iterate more, you get to iterate frequently, and you have a better chances of winning, understanding what exactly the customer problems are, and solve for it. And one of the ways you can manage this cost of iteration and keep it low is by focusing on building MVPs. MVP basically stands for minimum viable product. There are a few other names for the same, but represent the same concept of how do I build something as cheaply as possible, as fastly as possible, to be able to understand or test the concept I have about this problem, customer problems that I think is the problem, and the solution that I think is the solution that solves the customer problem, right? So by focusing on just building MVP, just enough to validate our hypothesis, just enough to try our concepts, we can manage this cost of iteration lower. If things work, good. Understand what worked and double down on it. If things doesn't work, that's also good. It's not a failure, it's a good thing because you can now learn what did not work, what are the pivots, what are the anchors you can use, what are the levers that you can pull to be able to iterate on top of it and get to the success part. Briefly, I mentioned about hypothesis. What I mean by that is when we don't think about building features, when we don't think about generating large impact from early on, we think about how do we understand, how do we know that we truly understand customer problems, and how do we truly know that the solutions that we are thinking about are the right solutions for our customers. I also often use hypothesis-driven product development in my day-to-day work. What that basically means is everything I do, every feature I build, every product update I do, every new product I release is all a hypothesis. Hypothesis about what I believe is the customer problem. It's a problem hypothesis. Test that out with, do I really understand the customer problem? And once I understand the customer problem, then I come up with solution hypothesis on understanding, is this the right way to solve this customer problem with the best outcome for our customers, right? So having hypothesis-driven product development helps. And one of the main thing it helps us is removing the personal attachments from the ideas, hence removing the bias that we have towards wanting to be successful. Failure is one of the biggest reasons why we hold back, right? If we remove the concept of success or failure by using the hypothesis framework, where hypothesis basically at the end of the day means you either validate or invalidate a hypothesis. It's never a good or a bad idea. It's never a success or a failure thing. At the end of the day, it's a hypothesis that you want to test by providing the right things in front of the customers and let the customers decide whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. This is the reason why failure is okay, and we can manage, as good product managers, we can manage the cost of delivery and cost of iteration lower. Let's spend some more time on understanding what MVP means and how to build a good MVP. Using hypothesis framework works, but then how do we convert that into an iteration and a roadmap where we deliver things consistently with incremental value to customers through every iteration? This is one of the famous pictures out there. And in fact, when I used to work at Microsoft, this used to be a big picture, big printed out picture hanging on my wall. As soon as you open the door, you could see it and have those conversations on how this translates to what we do day to day. This basically talks about if you're a product manager wanting to solve transportation problem from A to B, how would you go about thinking, understanding what customers really want and what solutions would work and what doesn't work? How do you build that customer relationship early on before even having a product? This basically means every iteration is providing those incremental customer value. MVP is not about going to market fast. MVP is not about making profit. MVP is definitely not about the end product. MVP is not about building things in parts. MVP is about finding the cheapest and fastest way through which you can validate or invalidate your hypothesis, understand if the solution that you think works is actually working, if not, learn from it, right? If your customer wants to go from point to A to B, try it with things that are easy to invest, faster to implement, get feedback on what works, what doesn't work, and move from there. If car is your ultimate goal, you don't have to start with the car. You can start with the scooter. You can start with the bike, and then keep iterating it. One of the questions you may have is, your customer is asking for a car, and I'm going to build a bike. Who would pay that? Who would pay for that? And how would that even make sense, right? Over the years, I thought about this and how to take this question and answer it correctly. This question was, in fact, asked by one of the engineers about 3 years ago, and I struggled then to answer the question. But over the years, I've figured out these are the two good examples that are out there, which talks to this iterative process. Talk to this process of how to build MVP, not with the final product in mind, but having customer at the center of your product life and understanding what your customer truly wants. It's not about building the product that you want to build, but building what customer wants and how you bring in that impact by solving customer problems. These are the two fascinating examples. And when you look at towards the end of these life cycles or towards the current stage of these products, nowhere it says or nowhere you can actually figure out that iPad is the end goal for iPod back then, right? Back then, Apple iterated through various different products, understanding the customer needs, excelling their organization skill in providing touch experiences, thereby getting to a very successful product such as iPad. Similarly, when you look at the Alexa journey, we all definitely consider that Fire Phone. How many of you remember Fire Phone, that it ever existed? Few, because it never really took off, right? Fire Phone, the failures from Fire Phone basically led to how Alexa exists today. Through its iterative process, figured out how devices work, how ecosystem of devices work, how the supply chain can be trained to bring in more and more devices to the ecosystem, how not building first-party devices could actually lift the whole ecosystem of IoT and AI-driven IoT, right? If you look at it from the smart home perspective, having a dash button from Amazon doesn't make any sense. Like, how are you going from dash button to a smart home fully enabled with full IoTs? But through these iterative products, you actually get there. If product manager's job was all to convert customer requirements into engineering requirements, life would have been easy. Our job is to figure out what customer really wants, figure out the market opportunities, create the opportunities where none exist, and build those organizational skills to capture those market opportunities. Three main summary points for this MVP that I want you all to remember is, the first one, MVP is only a means to find the cheapest and fastest way to test your hypothesis. Second, when you plan for iteration, each iterative step has to add incremental customer value. And the third one, and the most important one, is failure is okay. In fact, failure is only the guaranteed way of providing you ample learning opportunity through which you can iterate faster and thus have better chances of being able to solve customer problems quicker than before. Now that you have kind of understood how fail fast, learn, iterate concepts work in agile software development, as product managers, what can we do to speed up the adoption? We know that this is good. What can we do to speed it up, speed up the adoption in our teams and organizations? There are mainly two things we can do. First, bring in team alignment with KPIs. KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. Bring in team alignment so that there is a synergy to achieve for global maximum within the company versus each team operating in its isolation to deliver customer value for local maximum. The second thing we can do is to build the right culture in the team so as to facilitate the concept of fail fast, learn, and iterate. Facilitate that failure is okay as long as we are iterating fast and learning fast, right? Let's spend some time understanding how to use KPIs to speed up the adoption of fail fast, learn, and iterate process. KPIs are one of the ways to generate this large empathy at scale about your customer problems. KPIs don't come on its own, but as product managers, we need to spend a lot of time digging through the data, talking to customers, doing usability studies to figure out what are the metrics that matters more. What are the metrics we should use to decide if a A/B test that we launched is a success or not, how should we pivot, things like that. Through those, we come up with the KPIs that matters more, the metrics that we use to make a final say, whether we should ship the thing or not, whether somebody should invest in a thing or not. Once these KPIs are well defined within the team, figure out how everybody can align towards it. And in fact, this is one of the things company leaders should do, is to lay out what are those one to two KPIs that whole company should align towards. Unless you work in a two-people startup, every team would have a set of scope that they operate in, a set of objectives they should achieve, set of metrics that they need to move. If they operate in those local spaces, it's very natural for them to optimize for local maxima. Often that may not mean that it's a good thing for the customer and a good thing for a company as a whole. One of the examples, I work in identity space, and one of the typical examples in identity is when you look at the customer journey, the initial phase of acquisition through which a customer creates a customer account, goes through the sign-up process, gives in all your details, the boring, the time-consuming details, which is often one of the biggest drop-off in the funnel. But then you can increase sign-up conversion rate by asking for less things, but that doesn't necessarily mean it will translate to better a retention rate down the line, because we know less things about the users, hence we may not be able to personalize that better. There mainly, you can use this tool of three rule framework for evaluating if a KPI is a good KPI or a bad KPI. KPI has to measure customer experiences. You can have other set of metrics that measures system performances, process performances, usage, and a lot more, but a KPI has to measure customer experience at first. Second, KPI has to be a leading indicator of the product impact. Third one, KPI should be defined such that it should be easy to understand and it's actionable. Let's use this framework on two quick examples and see how this performs. NPS, how many of you know what NPS is? Pretty much everybody, right? We have been talking about NPS from the morning, like pretty much every speaker. NPS stands for Net Promoter Score, basically where you ask how likely are you to recommend this product or service to your friends and employees. How many of you think NPS is a good KPI for a company? Handful. How many of you think NPS is not a good KPI for a company? Little more than a handful. Let's evaluate NPS against the three rule check. All right? Is NPS measuring customer experience? Somewhat, yes, because it's a direct feedback from the customer based on experiences they had on the product and services. So it's somewhat indication of customer experiences reflected through numbers. 2, is NPS providing the product impact or giving an insight about the product impact? I think so. NPS is basically a referral indicator, and referral indicator is a strong indicator or a proxy metric for satisfaction, how satisfied is the customer about the product and services. Is NPS a simple metric to understand? Definitely no. It's a complex math. Just by looking at the formula, it's percentage of thumbs up minus percentage of thumbs down, and it goes from -100 to +100, and most of the successful products are in 60s range. It's not intuitive. It's a complex metric where getting unbiased answer is very hard, especially since it's so contextual on when you collect NPS. Just like App Store rating. Do you like the app? If yes, only then rate the app in the store. Otherwise, just give us feedback on how to improve, right? Let's take next example of monthly active users. This is one of the commonly used metric across different companies. This provides a platform where you can compare multiple products, having rated them again on the same bar, be able to understand their growth and the future potential. Monthly active users, let's see how the 3-rule KPI works for monthly active users. Does it measure customer experience? Not directly, but it does convey the more the usage, better the experience, hence more active users. Does it convey product impact? Definitely. Number of users. For example, if you take example Facebook, number of users using Facebook basically means how many people are connected to each other. And that's basically product impact that Facebook wants to achieve, right? Connecting the whole world to have that collaboration. And is it a simple metric that everybody in the company can understand? Definitely. It's simply defined. Everybody can relate to it, and everybody can directly contribute towards it. Some of the flat organizations who call themselves flat basically have company-level KPIs that every individual contributor can directly contribute towards that. Apart from lesser middle managers, the KPIs that company defines is so flat that everybody can contribute directly to it. Hence, you can have an impact in what company's impact is. Now, knowing how you can use KPIs to drive the adoption of fail fast, learn, iterate faster. The third thing that keeps everything together, culture is the glue, right? Unless we get the culture right, things will fall apart pretty quickly. And there is a famous saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. You can have a world-class strategy, the best strategy to guarantee your success, but unless you get your culture right, the strategy is going to come down, and the adoption you had is not going to stick for long. There are mainly two things that I focus on when I think about this, adopting this or bringing this change into my team. The first one is decision-making process. Gibson talked about some of the decision-making process, but Jeff Bezos, in his 2017 shareholder letter, by the way, how many of you read Jeff Bezos' shareholder letters every year? Quite a few hands. I find it one of the inspirational and lot of learning that I get out of those shareholder letters. There's so much of strategy, so much of product management, mini courses out there that you can learn from that. Decision-making process basically says there are two types of decisions, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 basically means they're easily reversible, and you can take them as often and as fast as you can. Do not wait for 100% of the data to be able to make the decisions. If you wait for that long, you're eventually bound to be too late. At the same time, if you have 70% of the data, go for it, make decisions. If they're bad, you can easily reverse them. Type 2 are those which are irreversible, takes longer time to get out of it. Those are the ones that require more collaboration, more elaboration. But being in a software tech industry, over 95% of the time, we take type 1 decisions, so we should take it faster. Enable everybody in the team to be able to decide, to make decisions, and if you have prioritization principles in place, then everybody will be able to make those decisions faster. Prioritization principles, there are many. The one that I use is mainly three-folded. One If ROI is better, then the priority of that project is higher. If the time to realize that impact is sooner, then the priority is higher. If there is a partner team taking a dependency on something that we build, then the priority is higher. Once everybody in the team understands these prioritization principles, they'll be able to use the decision-making process to make those decisions faster and faster, thereby contributing towards the learning and iteration. Leslie talked about whom you hire, whom you fire, and whom you promote often sets the culture for the company. Culture is not something you just have it in a deck, but be able to practice day in and day out. Only then the culture sticks. You can make people make decisions and say that failure is okay, but unless you reward it accordingly, it's not going to stick. So your company's or team's acceptance for failure will depend on how you reward people's effort versus how you reward impact versus how you reward learnings that organization produces. Most of the companies are very good at rewarding impact, but you got to balance the impact versus effort and learning. Impact definitely is way ahead of the game, and we got to reward it. But along with that, you also need to reward the learnings, the failures, the attempts, and the efforts. Lastly, the favorite part for me, for this culture is managing the cost of failure. This is something product managers can do better, and one of the key job description for us is to manage the cost of failure. As a team, we can be acceptable for failure, but as a product manager, we need to do our due diligence. We need to do our customer research, figure out the best technology options, truly understand what customer wants through data, and then be able to come up with these iterations where the chances of successes are higher, at the same time be acceptable of failures to happen. With that, to summarize, let's iterate faster and faster, more frequently to be able to deliver customer value quickly. Let's challenge status quo, be able to find new ways of lowering cost of delivery, cost of iteration. Let's not forget we are fortunate to be in software tech industry where we can build a bridge overnight. We can rebuild bridge over and over again till we get to a point of best outcome for our customers. We can affect change at a rapid scale, almost disrupting everything for good. Let's disrupt for good. Let's fail fast, learn, and iterate. Thank you so much.